Do I, as a DP, personally believe that this show is a cinematic masterpiece? Possibly the best comedy show of all time. Actually, probably.
The Obsessive DP.
The Office is a mockumentary-style episodic TV show based on the UK version with the same name produced by Ricky Gervais. The American spin-off is DP'd by Matt Sohn. The cinematic style of the show is interesting because it pretends to be a documentary while being scripted. The producers took this to a bit of an extreme in the earlier seasons because they placed limitations on their industry-rate film crew and only captured footage in accordance to what a normal documentary crew could film. For example, if they used 2 cameras for a scene, they never filmed from an angle where the second cameraman would be seen. They blocked out certain movements, walking to the bathroom for instance, in a way where if a normal cameraman couldn't get an angle on it, then they just simply wouldn't film it. Because of this, it makes it feel more like a documentary and less like a scripted TV show filmed with a Hollywood-level crew, which it was. That's what it was. They completely abandoned this notion, however, later in the series and started faking some camera angles that a documentary film crew would never film. But they did it because it aided to the story versus clinging to the realistic. This style lends to another key difference from other shows, which is the fact that the characters constantly break the fourth wall and talk to the camera, making the audience feel as if they are part of the show. I feel this kind of replaces the audience laugh track in a usual studio audience sitcom, which personally I find to be atrocious. I much prefer being talked to than having a fake sounding audience tell me where I should laugh. I hate it. I can't stand the fake audience laughing at jokes that aren't funny. Most of the time, the characters in the show know that they are being filmed and acknowledge the camera, but there's also times that the camera operators are acting covertly. This is called the spy cam, and there's usually barriers and foreground elements in front of the camera to help sell the fact that the cameras are secretly filming the characters. Throughout the episodes, as Michael does his best to make his office the most cringe-worthy environment possible, the camera operators employ a lot of whip pans, zooms, shaky cam, and have been tackled, in fact, on occasion, all of which is actually directed by the director and the DP. It doesn't happen randomly, but it's supposed to feel organic, as if it's happening in the moment. Being a documentary, the most recognizable scenes of the show are the quote-unquote interviews, which have been copied by all sorts of other shows. Although I would personally consider this show one of the greatest comedies of all time, I can't say that it's because of the cinematography, meaning I don't usually draw inspiration from it as I do with other films and documentaries. Some would say it's not cinematic, but it actually feels more like a senior level film student's feature film.
I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
But let's come back to that a little bit later. Let's dive in first. This is the very first interview in the entire series. It's a very simple setup. Let's examine the frame. Our character Jim is framed collarbone wide, with his face on the right third, sitting in an invisible chair. Behind him is a wall with awful wallpaper and a window. For lighting, we have the most common lighting interview setup that's been done a gazillion times. It's a basic key light, which you can see reflected in his eye, a fill light, which is very weak because the key light's so strong and so directed, and a backlight. You can actually see a bit of the backlight reflected in his eye. It's faking a sunlight coming through the window, so it's probably right above the window and shooting down on him from an angle, so it feels just like real sunlight hitting him, just edging him out of the background. As you can see, this lighting and framing is pretty consistent throughout all 2,000 interviews over 201 episodes. Of all the characters, they're all very similar when they're in the office. The framing, the lighting, it all looks almost exactly the same every time. Although I believe that Jim's looks the best, the most produced, and that's for a reason. The framing widens out after season 1 and is about chest up instead of collarbone up, and stays that way until the final episode of the final season. But the lighting, again, it remains very much the same. It's very flat. I would not call it cinematic or interesting. There's no shape whatsoever on the face, except for a little bit on Jim's with the sunlight coming through, glancing on his nose. There's no shadows on the face at all, no interesting edges for the most part. In most cases, there really isn't any need for a fill because because the key light is almost like right above camera. So there's nothing to fill in because the light is just straight on the face. When the light is straight on the face, it's all even anyway. A fill light is just to fill in the shadows where the key light is hitting. So my key light's hitting here, so I'm pretty shadowy here. I don't have a fill light because I like the contrast, but for the most part, you would have a little bit of light here, just kind of filling in the shadows, bringing up this side of the face so it doesn't look as contrasty as dark. I believe they over-exaggerated this interview type lighting to accentuate the fact this is a documentary and not a TV show filmed with a high-level crew, which it was. Documentaries are usually a bit less polished and more quickly produced than TV shows and have lower budgets. Also, one thing to note, documentaries always have a second angle, if not a third angle on the interview. They employ these multiple angles for diversity and also because if a subject goes off track and starts talking long-winded, they can use the multiple angles to edit down someone's thoughts and remove words without looking edited. It's a clever trick. We do it all the time. In our case, however, we are talking about a scripted show. Thus, there's no need for a second angle because no one is going off script. They're all just reading the script. There's no editing to be done because it's all one take. Comparing this interview frame with some of my favorite setups from modern documentaries, you could see a massive contrast, literally, in the lighting and framing. This is the start to a common trend you're gonna find in this video. You're gonna hear the words basic, simple, boring, non-innovative, good amount throughout this analysis. But Pam Beasley's final words ring true. There's a lot of beauty in ordinary things. Now let's compare the very first interview setup to all the other seasons, all 2,000 interviews from season 1 to season 9. As you can see, the first thing you'll most likely notice is the difference in color palette and saturation. It starts getting more saturated, the colors start popping way more in the final seasons. The initial style of the show mimicked the UK version, which was drab and lifeless. This is clearly based upon the common notion that office life is boring, colorless, and terrible. As the show evolves throughout the years, however, the color palette and saturation completely change. Everyone's last interview looks completely different than the first. It's like night and day. The show is bookended by these 2 interviews with Jim. An interesting note about this final episode is that they backlit most of the interviews with an orange gel, probably Roscoe Full CTO, as if they were filmed during sunset, aka the sun was setting on the entire series as a whole. Other interesting nerdy notes, Jim starts talking directly to the camera in season 3 during the interviews, while the other characters have their eyeline just left of the camera. They're looking past the camera towards the producers or the interviewer of the show. Also in later seasons, some interviewees start showing up on the left side of the screen versus the highly preferred right side during these interviews, just to give a little more diversity. There's a few moments where interview scenes are interrupted, such as the fantastically directed scene where Jim asks Pam out for the first time, literally completely interrupting her train of thought. Such a perfect scripted moment when the camera just whips over to Jim. There's a few times where they break the norm during interview setups and do something different, but not very often. Most of the time they do this, it's just outside of the office, because the office always looks the same, but when they're outside, literally outside, or in a different office, it feels a little bit different. They frame it a little bit different, they light it a little bit different, and it just shows that they're in a different place. If they were to change up the interview setup within the office environment, however, it would feel chaotic and new all the time, and it just wouldn't work. Branching out from the interview setup, we jump to scenes around the office workspace. Immediately, the lighting looks totally different. The light is no longer coming straight from the direction of our camera, but it's motivated overhead, a la the drop ceiling found in most office environments. Those are usually fluorescent tube lights in a normal office. As a DP, I hate fluorescent tube overhead lights. I think they're terrible. I always say, turn the house lights off. It's one of my mottos. But they didn't listen to my advice here. As far as I can tell from the BTS photos I've found, mostly all the lighting is from above. Many times they remove the drop ceiling tile so they can place lights, probably KinoFlows, which are similar to fluorescent tubes, up in the ceiling, and they direct it towards an area of the scene. It seems to me that they do this to avoid using light stands because they're probably shooting multiple angles at once with multiple cameras to maximize the amount of footage they can get per day. Most blockbuster movies, for instance, shoot with one camera at a time. When you do this, you can actually hone in the lighting a lot more. You have a lot of gack, a lot of stands, a lot of diffusion, a lot of flags, a lot of things right outside of frame that if you had a second angle, you would see all that stuff. So you can't use that. You can't really hone in the lighting and be very meticulous in manicuring it when you're dealing with multiple cameras. It's much more difficult. Because of this, you need to move the light farther from the subject and light a bigger area. That's why placing lights in the ceiling works well here, because most of the time the ceiling isn't in the shot. It also makes sense to motivate the light from above because of the overhead lights that are naturally lighting an office environment. This type of cinematography is much harder to get the right light levels, and it leads to many hotspots of practicals in frame that draw your eye, bad chin shadows because it's hard to fit big diffused light sources when you're going for a real in-office documentary style filming. To be honest, I think this type of filming is a bit of a cop-out for a DP because you can be okay with second-rate lighting, for instance in stairwells and in certain scenarios where camera people are hiding to get the shot, because they would actually never light those scenes in a real-world documentary. Also, check out the intro from Season 7, Episode 1, where they do the lip-dup oneer. Okay. The lighting contrast and color of this scene looks significantly worse because all you can really do with this type of filming is use the natural house lights and maybe a light coming directly from the camera angle, because the camera is seeing the entire office and the camera never cuts. There's never an edit. Again, the actual setup of the show helps with this degradation of quality because they talk to the camera as if Toby is filming here.
Toby, how do we do?
It's not the film crew, it's Toby. In this shot, we aren't even using the real documentary crew, and you assume as the audience, Toby's filming on more of a home video type of camera. Because of this nod towards the reality, the lowered quality is not a distraction and it makes sense to the viewer. It's a little bit of a cheat, but it totally makes sense. They did a good job. Now we're gonna shift gears to one of the most diversely captured shots in the entire series, the car driving shot. We've been in Andy's Prius, Michael's Chrysler Sebring and PT Cruiser, Daryl's truck, Meredith's minivan, Dunder Mifflin trucks, buses, Dwight's crazy car, everything. At times in the later seasons, it's a well-produced car-to-car shot like you'd see in a feature film, and at other times, it looks like it was filmed with a potato. For seasons 1 and 2, the cameraman sat in the back seat to capture these scenes, and the quality remained pretty consistent between the outdoor scenes and the in-car scenes. But starting in season 3, episode 12, Traveling Salesman, they start making some very odd choices here. They started using dash cams. Why? Probably because they thought it would be better to have multiple angles versus one camera in the backseat. And they probably wanted to show the characters' full faces from in front. Rather than cheating the two people in the front seats and having them look back at the camera, it was kind of awkward. The problem is, back then, the dash cam technology wasn't great, and it looks like it was filmed on first generation GoPros. I had that thing, it had terrible quality. The shots clearly aren't filmed in high definition, and it really gives you a second-rate, dated 1990s HGTV vibe. The windows are totally blown out and very little lighting is used. Just look at the quality between the normal cameras from season 1 and then the dash cam from season 3. It's funny because they actually took a step backward in quality. Even as far as season 5, take a look at Michael and Daryl singing in the truck. It gets very dark, and the image just looks bad, grainy, bad dynamic range, and it feels like poor quality across the board. I can't believe they made this choice. To me as a DP, it would be very hard to make a choice like this. It looks nothing like the better produced in-office shots. For me, it isn't until season 8 that the dash cams become passable. Why did the producers okay these low quality dash cams? I think that since they were already going the documentary route, and seeing faces from the front was worth it for the decrease in quality. Also, because in feature films, this shot is usually filmed with what's called a camera car driving in front of the picture car and shooting through the windshield, or attaching a camera outside the driver's side window with what's called a hostess tray. But as I said before, in the beginning, they were trying to recreate the feel of a real documentary, which unlike a scripted TV show, you don't usually use camera cars or hostess trays. Also, this is a big thing. You don't direct people to do the same thing over and over and over in a documentary. You just capture what they're already doing. So you can't really use multiple angles at different times. You have to shoot everything at once if you're filming a documentary. Multiple angles, that's why the dash cams work. So to get around this and stick to the real documentary style, they use dash cams in the vehicles, just like they use security cameras in the office. Because you can't have multiple camera operators in the same car shooting the same angles at the same time. There's not enough space. That's why dash cams are perfect here. Now around season 8, they stopped caring about the realism, and we really see the car shot evolve to a much more expensive feature film style. They have a camera car and a picture car setup, and they're actually using lights in these shots to fill in through the windshield. So in these, the windows actually aren't blowing out for the first time. Look through the windows in the back. On all other seasons, it's just white out there. As a Californian that moved from the Midwest, I cringe a bit when that cast goes outside to the frigid Pennsylvania, and there's super harsh sunlight in almost every scene. This is quite contrary to the usually overcast Pennsylvania prairie. The sunlight just isn't as strong over there. In other TV shows such as House of Cards, they use massive overhead scrims to block sunlight, and that helps to cut down the harshness and making it look more like an overcast day. I'm not sure this was a method ever employed on the set of The Office. Other than the occasional exterior interview shot, they probably used scrims for that. Otherwise, it was very harsh sunlight almost all the time. In fact, it looks like most of the outdoor scenes were shot as is, with the bright Southern California sun and all. Maybe a flag here and a reflector there, but no big lights or scrims that most Hollywood sets use to make the lighting look beautiful. Here's a funny note. This might be my favorite DP note in this entire video. It has to do with Toby's going away party. I think it's the most beautiful exterior shot ever filmed on the show. It's clear to me that the DP and the director really honed in the schedule on that day to make sure it was plain gorgeous. During this fantastic shot where Michael is singing his heart out about Goodbye Toby, there's an amazing light flare happening. It's pretty awesome as a lover of the show. It seems to me that it was intentional to make this going away party look absolutely epic. And for the crowd shots, where Toby is, they didn't try at all to cut down the sunlight with scrims and make it look less harsh. It's just extreme light blowing out everyone's face. So to the audience, Michael looks awesome, and Toby looks like crap. Which, it's a common theme of the show. This was definitely intentional. Other notable scenes would be a few times they clearly ran out of budget or found it hard to film in certain scenarios, such as a shot with Aaron outside of a Florida home, or the time when Michael and Dwight went to the dump to find the leads. Both of these Both of these scenes were filmed on a green screen stage, and the end result, it doesn't look very convincing. It was almost like they were testing the green screen stage. It's also interesting to note that the producers start experimenting a bit with the documentary style in the final season. They show some outtakes, behind the scenes content, they show the sound operator, camera ops, producers, they have post-interview questions with Jim and Pam, and even a time when the camera is left on and Meredith talks to the sound guy. Just does some interesting stuff there. This is a fun nod to the fact that the story is unraveling, and we, as the audience, start to see a bit how the sausage is made. To sum up, let's circle back to the comment in the beginning about the cinematography style being less than top-notch. Do I, as a DP, personally believe that this show is a cinematic masterpiece? Well, let's unpack that a bit. Honestly, when you come down to it, I'm not sure what other route this show could have taken. They had to balance a unique dichotomy of documentary realism and cinematography. Also throw in the dreary office look that they were trying to infuse into the production design, and voila. I think they did do it pretty darn well. There were so many scenarios where if they produced the lighting and lensing at the same level of a Cinematography Academy Award-winning blockbuster, it wouldn't feel right, it wouldn't look right, the audience would be confused. You'd be like, I thought this was a TV show about a paper company, not some fancy threat level midnight golden face Michael Scarn type production. It's not that high quality. If they did that, it would actually work contrary to the overall vision of the series. It would simply not feel right to have the visuals look like a contrasty, beautiful Hollywood film. Down to its core, it is what it is. A classic American Office. It's not James Bond. It's not a high-class masterpiece type scenario. It's an interesting note that it was nominated for 145 awards, but none of those were for cinematography. Higher quality visuals would not lend to the overall vision of seeing, as Pam said, the beauty in ordinary things. So on that note, I do believe that the cinematography in this show was perfect. Stay obsessed. Comment down below if I missed something. There's a lot of cool cinematography notes I probably could have missed. I watched all 201 episodes to prep for this, but I kind of want to do one on Threat Level Midnight, to be honest, because they did up the cinematography game, and it's hilarious.